Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Thursday night segment of the Outer Realm. We are broadcasting live here, as always, on the International Public Radio, here on the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM, 105.3 FM, from the beautiful city of New Orleans. This evening's segment is fully sponsored by the amazing, you can tell we're late, Mush Brain. Anyway, amazing folks over at Folgers Coffee. As always, we are grateful and we love you for it. Tonight, we welcome back to the show Utu Witchdoctor, who's always just full of fun. And new to the show with him is Thagard. And they are coming in all the way from Niagara Falls, Canada. And they're going to have a lot of goodies to talk about. So brace yourselves and get yourself settled. Now, as always, again, to participate in tonight's show, best to do it on UFO Paranormal Radio YouTube channel. At least Amelia can respond to you like right on, and anything else being International Public Radio, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, of course, our Facebook network, Facebook pages. We can see it, but we can't always necessarily respond to it right away. So please bear that in mind. If you're looking for a response, please tag Amelia if you would like her to personally comment ASAP. So, with that being said, hello.
Hello. I've been watching. Can you tell I've been watching The Crown? Hello.
Yeah. I like it.
How are you?
I'm good. I can't complain. It's been kind of a crazy day, but otherwise all right.
Oh my gosh, I have to check on my brother. We had a tornado touchdown. And one brother's in Barrie and one's in Innisfil, so I have to check on both of them.
Yeah, I hear that it's pretty bad. A tornado went through there. There's a lot of injuries and a lot of devastation, apparently.
You know what? It's not the first time it's happened there. We had I won't call it a cottage because it was a large home, and people make fun of me when I call it a cottage. But we had this summer house that my dad built on the Lake Simcoe, north of Toronto. And I remember being a kid when the last huge tornado tore like kilometer after kilometer of houses away. I'm going to say hi to everybody.
I know everybody's
Dolly.
chiming in.
Hello, Dolly. Well, hello, Dolly. I love that. Sorry, Dolly. I'm going to end up singing that to you when you come on the show.
You have to know, Dolly. It's going to happen.
Yeah. Hi to Jeannie. Hi to Michael Bowman. Hi, Michelle Millians, my dear friend on Facebook. I can't, if you need, like Michelle said earlier, in case you guys just came in, I need you to hit at Amelia Pisano Productions. I'm working on changing that name. It is my name, and they won't let me change it. They said it's a brand. I can't touch it. I'm like, it's mine. But
I know.
But I'm glad to see they're protecting it. I'm glad to see they're protecting it. But if you hit at, Amelia Pisano Productions, it'll highlight itself on my screen, on the larger screen, and I'll be able to respond in chat on YouTube only. I can see your comments, but I can't interact with you unless you're on YouTube.
Sorry,
please. Sorry. The link for YouTube is on our Outer Realm page on Facebook. It's also on our personal pages in Canada's Most Haunted and UFO Paranormal and News on the Flip Side. It's everywhere. Honest to God. If you just go to my timeline, it's open. It's right there on the top of the top.
I do want to make a really quick mention without doing the whole spiel like I do at the end of the show. But for those of you who haven't voted, head over to podcastawards.com. We've made it to the second level, people. Woo! So that means the more votes, the better. So you'll find us under social and culture category, but you will also find us. I think it's the Adam Curry. Don't quote me on it, but it's People's Choice Awards at the very top. And I will go over this whole list again and make mention of our colleagues, but get on over there and vote. We're so close. So just saying.
Please.
Just saying.
It's so exciting. We're obviously honored.
We were very surprised.
We're obviously honored just to be nominated because we're such a young show, and most shows on there have 5 years or more. Especially with this, it's Adam Curry, right? I
think it's Adam Curry. It's the only one that's got the title People's Choice Awards. It's at the very top. So if we can, do that, let's just chug away, and then that would be outstanding.
That would be really nice if you could vote for us. All they do is ask for your email. They confirm it, and then you go back and you can vote. Also, Joe is on there, the specialist, and our friends
the Centralist,
Science and Illustrators.
writers and illustrators of the future,
Future,
prophecy. They're all under different categories. So, but only the top three from the network, which is writers and illustrators of the future. It's it's Science and Beyond. Sorry, and of course the Outer Realm has bumped up to level 2.
Show us some love. They won't be emailing you constantly. It's that one time you vote, and that is it.
That's
and
it.
We only have a couple weeks.
They want to make sure you're not a robot, people.
Yes, that's all they want to do, and then you can vote. Hi, Wayne.
Exactly.
And then you can vote. Yes.
So we are just waiting for our guests to come in. So you want to give a quick bio?
I'll do a quick bio. If you are a follower of our show from the beginning, you'll know that Utu was actually one of our first guests on the show. And we had him in-house at the station.
In the studio.
Up close and personal. But
I know, he was wonderful.
Still only a milkshake, I have to say. Witchdoctor Utu is an author, curator of the Niagara Voodoo Shrine, and a member of the New Orleans, that's right, New Orleans, listening in tonight, Voodoo Spiritual Temple. Utu is a sought-after presenter at pagan, witchcraft, and conjure events across North America, and is increasingly now being invited to share among the paranormal community. As an initiated witch doctor, Utu has worked with possessions, hauntings, and the spirit world, combining investigations, clearings, and the spiritual work of traditions with unique results. Utu lives in St. Catharines, where Harriet Mama Moses Tubman brought her particular track of the Underground Railroad to its end. Amazing. And provides divination, cleansings, and spiritual consultations for clients. Now, tonight, for the first time, I get to meet her. She's your friend, Thagard, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Thagard. I already love her. She called me Sugar, just saying. So
that's her.
So Cat Thagard is the founder and CEO of Cat and Monkey Events in the heart of Niagara Falls, Ontario, Canada, the founder and resident witch of Niagara Witches and Pagans and head mistress, teacher at Black Cat Witchcraft, a lover of nature, spirit, and patron of the arts. She is also a diviner. That's how you say it, right? Diviner? I know I sound sorry. Some people say it differently. That's why I want to make sure. Witchcraft teacher, Reiki Master, Aqualead practitioner, writer, poet, burlesque dancer. Love it. And drummer. She lives to encourage people to be free and creative in everything they do and to be true to the real you. She called me Sugar. We're besties for life.
I know. She's now a connoisseur of like some pretty amazing Gothic furniture too. I'll tell you that.
Did you see that photo Utu posted?
Oh, those other ones. Yes,
so jealous.
Yes. Those are. I can't take credit for that one. So,
no, I'm just so jealous of the
whole store is filled with amazing things. So yeah, and they are here. I understand.
There, they weren't open. Yay!
Bring them on in, please, Joe. Here we go. Hi guys.
Oh my God, how are you guys?
Can you hear us okay?
Yeah.
But I don't feel
Do you hear us?
Oh, yeah, we can hear you good.
Perfect. How are you?
We're obviously very close together, so, deodorant is in full effect.
That was Amelia and I when we were in the studio.
You remember? We were on top of each other. We actually have photos of us like this.
Yeah, no, this is great. Yeah, we see you both, and great background.
Beautiful background.
Egyptian mummies
on both of us. Yes,
I know.
God. One of the few things I didn't buy from you, Michelle, but I love all my pieces.
I heard Kat.
I have so much more.
Like, how did she get what? She got the what?
You have to go to the store. You probably recognize a few things. That's where it went.
I can't wait to come in. Last time I was in the city, you were closed because it was late at night, right? So obviously, because we're doing
Let me know when you're coming. I'll open up for you.
Oh my God, no, we don't have to do that. I just want to meet you. You don't have to do it. And Utu owes me a milkshake. I haven't forgotten. It's been a year.
He's like, no, I don't. I don't even remember that.
Yes.
So, how are you guys? How are you doing? How was your day?
It was good. Yeah, it was actually a very productive day today, and pretty busy. And yeah, Yeah, shot a commercial for downtown Niagara Falls, so that was cool.
Nice.
And yeah,
Nice. Everything's opening back up, which is kind of nice, isn't it?
it's amazing. Yeah, good for the bars on the street, and yeah,
I don't want to
It's
say
going to
it.
be a busy weekend.
I know.
It's going to be a busy weekend. Michelle's a little sad, but I'm happy for all of you guys.
I'm sad. What? Sorry? What did I
Because
miss?
it's going to get busy. You're going to be sad because it's going to get busy, and then it's going to take her 20 minutes to get up to a 2
This is
minute drive.
true. It takes
And
me
then I
longer to
can
go to
also-
Starbucks. It's like, damn tourists. I'm kidding. I love you all. Just kidding. I get a little ornery when I don't have my latte in the morning, though. So, welcome, Utu. Of course, this is like your fourth time. We love you that much. And Kat, this is the first for you.
yeah, I'm excited.
We were excited too. So why don't we start off, because our guests or our listeners do know a little bit more about Utu than yourself. So why don't you come into what I call humble beginnings, how you got into all this and how you and Utu came to be working together. And then we can get into both of you guys talking about your projects and events and things like that.
Well, we were friends, and then he did some stuff like with the band drumming for our. We throw a witches ball every year in Niagara. We throw the Niagara Falls witches ball, so they would drum for us. They were nice enough to do it, and that was awesome.
Wow.
Everybody loved it, and then we just kind of started. I don't know. Hey, let's do an event. Let's do this. Let's do that. Let's do some ritual for people. We've always done ritual at the shop, usually in a smaller setting. And then, he would allow us to do bigger rituals like outside and stuff like that. Last year was super cool because they allowed us to do a giant witches mass in the square. Like they had this road closed and we were allowed to do a witches mass out there that he facilitated. So that was super cool as well.
Very nice.
Yeah.
So how did you come into, I always say people don't just wake up, and say, I'm going to be a witch.
Oh, well,
as cool of a thing as it is. Some people can bring it with them through their lifetimes, but other people sort of grow into it. So,
right.
What's your story?
Right. Everybody's different. I've been doing this my entire life.
Right.
So when I was about 6 years old, my brother was very heavily into the occult.
Oh.
And he got me my first spell, which I still have the box and the remnants of, the ingredients in. And I sometimes take that with me when I teach certain classes. And that hooked me. And I just knew that this is me. This is who I am. I've always had like a huge connection to trees. I've had some pretty interesting, weird things happen to me when I was a kid. And I've just always been a practitioner. And I usually kind of just, when I moved to Niagara, I kind of wanted to bring people together because I found that everybody was very segregated here and they didn't really, get together. There's lots of solitary people that aren't really into group stuff. So I started Niagara Witches and Pagans, which is just a social group. Actually, I think you're on the page, Michelle. And it's just a social group. We host like pagan meetup once a month when we're allowed to have things going. And, it's a good chance for people to get together and to talk about different topics, to practice maybe tea leaf reading or tarot card reading, or, it's just a social, fun, very laid back, relaxed thing. And there's other events that we do through that as well. But that stuff is always like a free kind of thing where anyone can just come, just so you can get to know other people in the community. And that's been a pretty big success. I've run that page for about 5 years and I'm up to like 750 members now, which is like a huge thing.
Yeah, that's excellent.
Right. So,
do you think that, the Niagara community, were they more like closet witches? Like when you say they don't want to come out and just because maybe, is it like a stereotypical thing? What do you guys think with that?
Yeah, they're very much like that. Yeah.
Wow, really?
Even now, it's hard to get people to come out. I always encourage everybody to come out. I also think a lot of people, because when I teach my classes, they're all very geared towards new people, beginner classes. I start with the basics so that they get a feel of what, some people just don't know what to do or where to go. So I tell them what I do and they can tweak it the way that they want to tweak it, but yeah, it's hard to get people to come out to stuff. They like to kind of stay in their own little bubbles, which is
it's
fine.
weird because it's Niagara Falls. Like, isn't this a city where anything goes?
Yeah.
Right. You would think so. But
Yeah.
I think it's just a lot of people they're afraid to come out because either they don't want any kind of drama, which I'm a whole non-drama. I don't want it either. They don't want, some people don't know that they're in that community, or they are witches or whatever they happen to be. And they don't want people to find out because they're still kind of, to themselves and, so to speak, in the closet about it. Right.
Yeah.
And then another thing is people are kind of sometimes freaked out and they don't know what we're going to do. Like, I know because a lot of rituals we do, they hear it's, a witch doctor doing them. So they're thinking we're doing some kind of crazy stuff.
Like Utu is going to show up with bones in his nose and just a little loincloth and little rattles and don't realize he's more sophisticated. You do sometimes? Well, okay, I want an invite when that happens because I'm going to get some B-roll for this show.
So, it's okay. They think I travel with a crystal ball.
I think it's great. No, but I guess it would be a little bit scary if people don't know what to expect, because there's different levels of witchcraft. Is that right?
Yeah, there's people who are very they eat, sleep. I mean, in my opinion, witchcraft is your life. It's in every aspect of your life. You don't really have a witchy life and a non-witchy life. It's who you are. You eat, sleep, and breathe it, right?
Right.
But some people are not afforded that luxury because they can't practice in their home life for whatever reason.
That's true.
So it's nice to have a little bit of an outlet. And I always encourage people to come out and see what we do because it's not as freaky as you think it's going to be. Right. And I think sometimes they're like, oh, this is what you do? Okay, that's not what I thought. I thought it was going to be, sacrificial.
That's so Hollywood. That's the black side.
Right.
You hide that behind. You have to go to the back door to get that from Kat. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Seriously. People do have a a stereotype in their head, and I think a lot of it has to do with the stories growing up, and just the way the society was so shunned by the rest of, I'll say, villages in Europe, here as well. So I can imagine that's got to be tough sometimes. It's a bit easier, do you think, now with the internet and more people exploring and researching?
Yeah, I think people are a little more willing to come out and find out what things are about. And especially when they come into the shop and then they talk to me and see that I'm kind of just like a normal person and I'm not, I am me. What you see is what you get, right? So
yeah, but the shop is very welcoming. I love the shop. I do. You're welcome. I had one that wasn't far off, a few years back. And, it was nice to see people come in and just look around and go, just because it's like weird stuff you're not going to see anywhere else. Right. So I felt right at home, I have to say, and Wayne's like, okay, we're going to go in the store. Oh,
awesome. Well, I always love it when you come visit. I love it when you come visit, and I love decorating my store with your things.
Me too, because I can still visit them.
I love that you have the store because it's not something you find often in Southern Ontario. It's not something easily, that you just come across. So it's nice. And you're in the perfect area for it too.
Yeah, I love it. We're kind of like a little niche, store. I mean, it's specific to if you want herbs. We have herbs, it's specific to if you're a practitioner, and it's not like every other store. And we have altars everywhere. So that's always nice for people. And Utu's kind of like my unofficial window dresser. Nice. In all honesty, I wouldn't be able to have the cool windows I have without him. So.
And a fine job he does also. Yeah. Just saying.
He does. Yep.
So, Utu, what's new with you? Obviously, you do spend time in the store, and I understand you guys have like a resident spirit there. Is that correct?
Well, this building, Kat is more equipped to talk about what goes on here at night. But there are quite a few objects in here, that's for sure. Okay. I'll let her tell you about them. There's a little section of haunted objects here in the shop. And the thing that stood out the most that was interesting to me was last March. In March we had that little window that things were open here in Niagara. So we managed to squeeze in this annual event we do here called Mojo Rising, which is, a combination of celebrating and honoring and teaching things that are akin to conjure, root work, North American voodoo. And so if this year we had to have smaller crowds back in March. So instead of doing something different each night, we did the same thing each night to be able to bring in certain people each day and each night, the right amount of people that we could have by safety regulations.
Of course,
and so the whole downstairs of this building was all set up for the ritual part. And, myself and a couple of guys from the Dragon Ritual Drummers, we brought in from my house, like really unique, historic, old initiated drums. So specific drums we use in ceremonies that are, they're archaic, they're older, they're carved with effigies, they've been blessed, they've been handed down. And so I only play those usually at my house. They stay in my home. And another member of the band has a couple at his place as well. So this is the first time ever and then the band was, we brought everything in here and just had it all set up downstairs and just left everything set up in a certain way. And so maybe I'm used to it a different way or not, but she can tell you, because after the one night, we had all the drums downstairs set up.
Right. So then because we had this event and it's a weekend event, sometimes I'll stay at the shop in my office and I'll sleep over. So I was asleep and you'll like this, guys, because it's very paranormal. I woke up to the sound of drums playing, and it freaked me out because I was by myself and I'm thinking, oh my God, who broke into the shop? Did Utu come back and get in somehow? Or is it like somebody broke in? I don't know what's going on. So I came out of the office and I went downstairs and like nothing, there's nobody in this building, but those drums were like, like they were going. And so I came back upstairs and I was like, that's a little odd. So I texted Utu and I was like, okay, the drums were playing this morning. What's up with that?
I was like, oh, yeah, they do that sometimes. I was like, I never thought about it, because not only did we have all the drums out down there for ceremony, but because we had all the effigies. And we went out of our way to do some things that, when we do Mojo Rising here and the Canadian Conjuration Campout, those two events afford us the opportunity to have, members of our traditions present. It's a smaller group. So unlike some of the public stuff, someone that's going to come to those events are coming because they have a really keen interest. And then, after a couple of days, or at least in past March, the whole day to bond and get comfortable, by the time the ceremony happens at night, it's very much similar to what it would be like if everybody in attendance is initiated members of the religions, meaning like Santeria, Ifa, Voodoo. So there was a lot of effigies down there as well. Like it was a very elaborate altar setup and all the drums were down together. And so to me, I was like, oh yeah, that's right. Of course they did. So all of the manner of some of these drums that are initiated, they house spirits. And that's one of the things in our tradition is, and I go out of my way to eventually collect them, but mostly because I inherited a few drums that come with a specific spirit that are meant to be played to, evoke the presence of certain spirits. So they were all down there, and according to Kat, they were
having a party.
They're having a party. Wow.
Wow.
And he's like, oh yeah, didn't I tell you? Oh, I forgot to tell you that. I was like,
my God.
Can't they party at night like the rest of them? Why do they have the party in the morning?
right?
Somebody forgot to clue them in. Don't wake Kat up in the morning.
No, that's for sure. Not before my coffee.
Right? I get that completely.
I'd be startled.
Amelia, can you see that Facebook message? I'm not sure if you can because of your screen, but if not, I'll catch it. Can you see it?
I can
It's a question.
See it. Yes. Okay, let me do this myself. Why does witchcraft have to be connected to Luciferian cults all the time?
It doesn't.
I don't think it is.
Answer. So why does witchcraft have to be connected to the Luciferian cults all the time?
I
It
think
doesn't.
that's
It doesn't.
Hollywood.
No.
Not at
I
all.
think that's a
Not
Hollywood.
remotely.
No.
Yeah.
The Luciferian.
Yeah.
No.
No.
I don't have anything to do with that. And
Yeah, I think maybe you're thinking of the occult for sure, but not witchcraft.
I mean, that kind of goes back. I think that's still a remnant, and there's no doubt about it. Average people do sometimes, have that notion, and it does go kind of back to the old, satanic panic of the 80s. That era where everybody thought that everything witchcraft related was based around Satan, and things of this nature. So
is that media? Do you think that's portrayed?
Well, yeah, I think it was media back then. And it seemed like it was really sensationalized, and they didn't help, that's for sure. But I don't know anybody that practices that way at all. I mean, there are some people that do identify as Satanists. They do have their own tradition. They don't really intercede with the pagan world or the witchcraft world. They most certainly don't intercede with the voodoo world. I can tell you that. Not very commonly. So I don't. Yeah, there's no really connection at all to that.
Well, I'm glad you're explaining it. Because for people who don't understand, all they have is media. That's all they have. They've got no clue. I think it's always hysterical when people try to preach things to you, and I'll throw out a few pagan things, and they're just sort of like, "Did I stump you? What did I lose you?"
If anything, I kind of find these days. So it's a valid question, because certainly people do believe that. But in my estimation, it seems kind of nowadays that witchcraft, at least under the banner of Wicca, has become so accepted into society to the point where people look at it as a very benign, tree-hugging, very nature-based religion. And some of that's true. But, we all like to hug trees, that's for sure.
Yes, we do.
So it surprises me sometimes when people think there's still a tinge of the nefarious in there, because I feel like in many ways that it's become almost to the point where, forgive the term, like soccer moms embracing elements of witchcraft and Wicca.
That's a great point. My nephew is Wiccan, and I have a great deal of respect for it. But I think what happened, what Ruff is probably referring to, is the whole of the 1990s. I don't know if you guys remember the show Charmed. Everything was a demon. Everything was the spirit. Everything was Satanism. Everything was
that's
dark.
What sells. That's the media. That's what sells. The fear factor.
Yeah, I think that's what that thing comes from. Like my great grandmother was shunned by the Catholic Church for practicing, and she was a holistic healer more than anything, which was hilarious for me when I found out. But anyways, it's sad. It's sad, but that's why you guys are here, so we can explain what.
You just brought up something interesting, which makes me want to say that because yes, Charmed, everything was a demon. In the voodoo world, especially particular the American voodoo, Caribbean voodoo that comes out of Haiti, one similar thing happened was because of that TV show American Horror Story, and specifically the season that was called Coven. And in that show, they made the character, who was this sort of demonic death figure, Papa Legba. And so Papa Legba was depicted Papa Legba was depicted in the show as a skeletal faced, top hat wearing, sort of like, demonic death figure. And in reality, he's actually a very benevolent, when he manifests in human form as an old man at a crossroads. He's never depicted in skeleton makeup. He's never depicted in that way. That they're depicting Baron Samedi, who is another spirit associated with the graveyard and the dead of the graveyard. And to this day now, when you type up Papa Legba in Google Images, you will see nothing but images of that character from that TV show. To the point now where people are painting art, creating things to sell as, hey, this is a Papa Legba candle, and it's got a death figure on there. So it's one of these things that's been going on for years. It's like, is this ever going to be able to be, you're fixed or erased? So sometimes TV, or movies, as much as they're entertaining, can really cause a great deal of harm and confusion, to the point where people brought things to me and said, look at my Papa Legba, something or other, or look what I painted, this amazing thing that I'm giving to this temple. And I'll be like, don't do that. That's not Papa Legba. You've painted Baron Samedi. And media is just.
I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because it's true. I wouldn't know. Everything I learn about it, I learn from you. Actually, that's why I love having you on. I could talk to you for hours. But I think a lot of people forget that it is actually that. It's entertainment. It's not fact. It's embellished. It's exaggerated.
But that's why shows this is. I mean, we always say we love to provide a platform, for people at the top of their fields to be able to come in and, set the story straight. We've had so many people who have basically, whatever their field may be, going, that's not true. That doesn't happen. I don't care if you saw it on TV. It never happens that way. I'm one of them. I'm forever saying that's not a thing. It's our thing, you know. So it's nice, like, you know. But no, it's a great topic to cover. Like, what are other misconceptions within witchcraft or voodoo that people, you know, lean to thanks to media or just bad information?
Well, for voodoo, it would definitely be the whole, you know, animal sacrifice, you know, the nature of just the cruel, you know, as if it's barbaric or, right. You know, like just no one understands. They think it's all curses related around spells and curse work, whereas all of the, like voodoo, Santeria, you know, which is Lakumi, but is known commonly as Santeria. And there's a few other of these religions that are centered out of the Caribbean. You know, they're dignified religions. And yes, there's drumming involved, there's dancing involved, there's all manner of sacrament offered, but it's actually very constructed. It's various people have various roles, and it's meant to glorify certain elevated beings that are sometimes were ancestral to some of the people who specifically were African descendants, you know, were put into the Caribbean via slavery. And so, or just the elements of those elevated beings that came from certain parts of Africa, or parts of elevated beings that were arisen out of the need here in the Americas, you know, against the struggle against slavery, oppression. And so it's a dignified religion. It's a beautiful expression. And, you know, so I think that people just always think, you know, it's like about stabbing voodoo dolls and cursing somebody. And they always say, you know, try voodoo if this magic doesn't work. And it's like,
but
well,
just
yeah,
take a walk down some of the stores in New Orleans. Here's your little voodoo doll for this or for this. Or as a commercial side.
And now I love voodoo dolls. Obviously, we teach voodoo doll class here, and I do use them, and they do have a purpose. But there's more to it than that, you know. So
right.
It's very complex. I don't know. What do you think of witchcraft? You know.
Well, I mean, I've been asked countless times. Do you sacrifice babies? You know, do you get? I mean, the questions I get that are just out there that are, you know, and I'm like, no. It's crazy.
I'm not a reptilian. Sorry.
Right.
Yeah.
But I also firmly believe a witch that can't curse can't heal. You need to know both sides of everything. Everything's not all fluffy and shiny, but you know, you got to know both. You have to learn both. But it's not all about, you know, I mean, it's not all about that. And you know, we're not doing the crazy stuff they show on TV.
Right.
Not in public.
Right.
Say that
I think people just gravitate to the whole macabre side of life, really. You know, it's not so much just, you know, in that field. It's, you know, our field. It's just like, oh, you know, it's a demon. No, it's freaking psychokinesis. I've gotten to a point where I just start sending links off to people. If you see yourself in this, chances are it's what's going on. You know, you try to be really delicate, and obviously not in every case, but geez, in a lot of cases. And it's very difficult for people to think that I mean, you are a powerful person as an individual, you know, and I think that, you know, in your world, you probably see that as well. It is what you project outward. It is about your energy. It is about drawing energy from the universe or the trees or the planet, and anything that you do, your music, like the drumming, for example, to be able to bring forth entities and healing and vibrations, and it's the frequencies, and right, it's what makes the world go round. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't realize that.
That's one of the things that's attractive, I think, to a lot of people once they establish a connection with the community, whether it's in the neo-pagan witchcraft community, if they can get into it, or the African traditional religions, if they have access to it. It's that everybody participates in you know, the process of connecting with the divine. So everybody is literally the priest and the priestess to some degree. And so it's one of the few religions that both of them have in common is that there's a religious aspect to it, most certainly. But then there's also this sort of sorcery aspect to it, where there are elements of things that get done that you have to do, as opposed to, you know, in most other religions, it's the clergy, the priest, you know, that will do the sacrament or that will, you know, do certain prayers. But of course, you know, for people that are Catholic, they'll find a great deal of similarity with propitiating certain saints and making sure that saint effigy and candle that has certain offerings of flowers and food and drink and things in a shrine set up to honor or glorify it. So that there's that commonality too, but people do feel like they're at least participating in the process. And so that's very liberating for people to, and then it's giving them the ability to grow in their spirit and to connect with a different world that other religions just don't really focus on the mysteries in nature, And so that's the thing I think a lot of people are attracted to.
Yeah, but that's a good point that you make right there. And I feel that people, I think so many religions are institutional, like you have all these, you do have your rules and regulations, but it only counts if you're under this one roof, and I think part of what you guys are showing, and obviously it's a pagan lifestyle, which it goes back to the earth. It goes back to everything, nature. So when you say nature, yes, it's nature, right? I always tell people, hug a tree, man. It loves to share its energy. Just hug a tree.
So how many times I've done that?
Exactly. Just get out there. It's true though. People think, oh, that's this the most ridiculous thing. It's not. Do it. Just try
It's
it.
not. Trees talk to you. Trees will give you messages. Trees will. I work with them all the time. I use parts of them in tons of my magical work. Whenever we're in Salem and I'm like in the back hugging a tree in the yard, and he's like, I can see there for a minute, like
there she goes again. Yeah.
Right. You commune with
Hugging a
them.
new
And when you
tree.
commune with anything in nature, if
Yes.
you are open and if you, pay attention, you're getting messages, you're getting, things from that. It's a living being. Without trees are most important to me. I mean, without them, we don't exist, right? There's no air to breathe without some trees. They are the givers of life. They're just so, I don't know, they're
But
crazy.
they communicate with one another also, right?
They
with
do.
Their roots, like they do. They're
They
very essential on a whole lot of.
They're like
different
people.
levels.
They're just still people, and they take their time to tell you things.
No, it's true. I always say, go and just do an exchange of energy with them. Even if you just sit at the base of a tree and just sit there and meditate and just, accept its energy. I've told so many people that and they just look at me like I've got two heads. I'm just like, no, for real, do it. You're like, okay, whatever, So I don't know. I think it's a great thing. So, but now obviously we're out of plague jail for now. So,
not yet. Midnight.
I know. Come on now. Shh.
Couple
Don't
hours.
Don't speak. No. No speaking about it. So do you have anything exciting coming up? Because of course it's summertime too, right? So do you have any ceremonies, coming up or events that people should be made aware of?
We actually haven't got that far yet because we're only just starting to be able to do anything.
I know, but it might be short-lived. You got to get on this stuff.
Yeah,
I
It doesn't
know.
last long.
We will
Soon,
be
September.
having classes again and stuff, probably closer to either sometime in August or early September. Classes will start rolling again. I've kind of just been waiting to see what's going on. Right now, we're just concentrating on the retail aspect.
Right. So what kind of classes, what are your most popular classes? What do they involve?
Well, the Witchdoctor does a class with the making your own besom, so broom making.
Okay, I was going to say, so for the layman, this
broom
is
making.
what
So
okay,
he makes
just keep
these
us like,
cool
what was that?
brooms, shows you how to
Spell
make
it.
a cool broom and everything, and everybody loves it. And it's not just about the making of the broom. The thing that I think differentiates his class from other classes is the fact that he enchants the broom as well and shows you how to enchant your broom and to work with it, right? So that's a really great class. My most popular class is always Love Magic, which is not my favorite class, but it's the one that fills up the quickest, I'll tell you that.
Wow, what kind of things do you do in love magic class?
I personally like to concentrate on self-love because if you don't love yourself, it doesn't matter. Nothing else matters. If you don't love you, nobody else is going to love you, right? So, but most people are interested in, procuring that love for themselves from another person. And,
Right. Is there
I'd have to say
coaching for that? Things like that? Yeah.
Right. I have to say my favorite class is probably teaching blood magic, but I don't do that often.
That's
And what does that
interesting.
entail? Because it sounds so much
Yeah.
fun.
Using your blood in
Sounds
spell
like I
work.
might sign up.
Yeah, sign us up.
Wow.
It's one of those things where people go, "Oh, they are doing blood magic."
Right.
So continue.
No, it's using. I know, it is my favorite class, and it's my favorite class. You're using your own blood, not someone else's, and it's not like the TV shows where you take a knife and you're like, and cutting your hand all open. And we use diabetic needles so that you can get a little prick and just use, and it's safe that way, and it's very controlled. So,
and what does
there's
this
lots of
do?
things you can do with that, because blood is the essence of you, right?
That's right.
It's the connector to you, your ancestors, and everything else. So it's like a super powerful aspect to magic. You can add it to other things. You can use it on its own. There's lots of things you can do with it, but I don't teach it often, but it's probably my favorite class to teach.
That's an example. Her blood magic class is an example because it happens at least a couple times a year. That is why we like to collaborate, because I can tell you, as even one who travels this continent to attend events where there's lots of witches or lots of people in different magical traditions, that's essentially considered a taboo subject, and only taboo subject because most of the people are very lack of education or ignorant to the fact that they think if you're using blood in magic that it that's forbidden. It attracts demons. Like Michelle, this is one of these things that I always hear from people. Are like, oh, if you use blood, once you cut yourself or use any blood in a ritual, these are people who I thought were knowledgeable in the occult, and they believe this. And maybe if you wanted to go that direction, it might be possible, but it's just not really the case. And using blood in magic is one of the most ancient practices amongst humans. We have, there's colloquialisms and passage rites throughout humanity in the exchange of blood, and it's initiatory thing. So the fact that this is what she goes towards and helps teach that is awesome. And so that's why here in Niagara, we kind of, all our crew sort of pushes the limits of, not because it's controversial, but it's because it's reality, and we want people to learn things out of our community and our collaborating, crew that we work with, to get something that's tangible, knowledgeable, and get the truth, and then discover the true power of it.
Right.
Wow.
Right. Okay, Amelia, you had a question, I know.
Dolly Saffron asks, what type of ceremonies are there? But I need to know who she's referring to. Any type. Very curious. Okay.
So I can answer that to some degree, because what we do here in Niagara for the last, about 3 years now that we've been working together in this region, is these things that we call the witches' mass. So we have a witches' mass usually in the spring, one in the summer, one in the fall, maybe one near, the Yule holidays, which is essentially just a kind of a, salacious name, because that's what they used to be called in ancient times, a witches' mass, where witches gathered to perform a mass. So we just attach that to be something that's very much the witchcraft traditions of celebrating the particular time of the year that the quote unquote the wheel of the year spins around, and each season is a doorway into another mystery that you focus on. If people were still attached to farming and different lifestyle when with more connection to nature. So when it's the witchcraft world, of course, the big one is at Halloween. We just focus on that wheel where we gather. There's a particular altar set up. Sometimes it's inside, sometimes it's outside, depending on the weather and the season. And that way people can come to that and get a sense of, what that holiday is and celebrate it in a unique way. And because a lot of times also pagan communities tend to present these particular holidays in a very light, a very, very cleaned up way. And again, this is why we gravitate to working together, is because kind of want to make sure that they get a sense of what it really is if you were attending one of these rites amongst the initiated without giving up too much. Right. So that's for the witchcraft traditions we do. And then somewhere in between there, around sometimes the same holidays, is the voodoo traditions that we'll share, that I can share. And usually when I do that, either working again amongst ourselves with the people here, but we always bring in somebody either from America or from here in Canada who is renowned within our traditions, a priest or a priestess within voodoo, within Santeria, within Ifa, within Palomayambe, any of these traditions that we're part of, so that we can also feature some other folks that have something else to share as well. And that way they also get to see, oh, there's these different people that, this one person happens to be Cuban, or they happen to be Puerto Rican, or they're from West Africa, or they're from Jamaica. This one's from France or Scotland, whatever, Canadian.
Very diverse.
See the way that there's a commonality there. So when we share those, it's a slightly different one, but we always keep it very public, very open. It's always advertised in Niagara Witches and Pagans. My page is just one giant advertisement, to be quite honest. I throw some personal things in there, but it's always promoting
I love
something.
your pictures.
Always something going on.
You always share the drumming pictures, and that's something I want to attend one day soon, because it's something I want to experience so badly. What kind of feeling do you get when you're there and you're drumming? What do you prepare for that in a spiritual way before you start drumming, or
when it's for ceremonial
happen?
Purposes? Yeah, if it's for ceremonial purposes or ritual purposes, if it's mostly specifically as well, lots of people that are initiated. For example, if there's an integral, like say a voodoo ceremony happening, and there happens to be about 3 or 4 or 5 drummers, then, and everybody else in attendance, then yes, there's a bunch of things that go on together where the drums are anointed or they're fed, meaning that there's libations of liquid and things going in their direction, certain prayers. The dancers are doing one thing, drummers are doing another. At other times, it's become automatic for me if it's something that's open, because I have my own mechanisms. I don't really dwell into the mundane world too often. I live kind of like a freakish life where I just, my house is one voodoo shrine. I don't go out of it too often unless I'm visiting some other witch or pagan or voodoo practitioner. My world is very insular, so I don't really break out from it much. So I'm on autopilot. I don't really have to do anything fancy to prepare ahead of time. But once in a while we will, especially the drummers will always still get together to just sort of talk for a moment, make sure we're all on the same page, because there's a lot of chemistry necessary. And again, sometimes we'll feed the drums and, give them that sort of charge them with energy. It really depends who's present, what the purpose is. And then with the dragon ritual drummers, when we perform shows, it's kind of watered down a bit, because we're not doing an actual ceremony. We're now entering into the phase of performance. And so that's uncommon. Some of the greatest, I say Cuba again, and, and is some of the greatest performances, ensembles that come out of Cuba. The Afro-Cuban jazz is, most of that music is centered around the lakumi and, the religious, non-Christian religious practices on the island. So those songs are singing about glorifying certain spirits, certain elements of this nature. So, and they're dancing certain sacred dances that would be done in ceremony. So a lot of people see some of the colorful dances out of Cuba or Puerto Rico on stage with all these drummers and jazz musicians. And they think, wow, this is colorful and exotic and it sounds great. And yeah, they travel the world like that. But these are they're demonstrating a sort of presentable aspect of what happens in rituals or celebrations amongst that culture, or whoever they invite into their culture. So when the dragon ritual drummers perform, we're kind of doing that now. We're sort of demonstrating multiple rhythms. We play a lot of ones that come out of the New Orleans drum culture, ones that belong to the Voodoo Spiritual Temple at least, and the rest of them we kind of play we've created ourselves to sort of just be something that is an exchange for the crowd. So that's very fun, because we know that there's an exchange of energy no matter what, and we at least endeavor to bring that if we're playing live. That the people in the crowd are going to feel like they're connected to us, talk a lot between songs to explain rhythms and get everybody into it, to clap and dance. And we do explain a little bit about, this song is about this particular spirit that comes out of the swamps of Louisiana, or this next rhythm is about this particular elevated being that comes out of, the Yoruba region of Nigeria. And we sing and we play the rhythm, and, and people, kind of get a little education as well and get a little global taste of things.
That is beautiful.
So pretty similar too, because we stream out of New Orleans, and it's a big, voodoo and witchcraft community, and a lot of it has become very commercial, but a lot of them are all in the background too, right? So that's always fascinating. But I don't know, I haven't even been there yet. So my daughter's like, "Oh, you got to go! It's so much fun." So she comes back with all these voodoo doll souvenirs. I'm like, okay, what am I supposed to do with these? Well, I can think of a few things. Give me a lock of your father's hair. No, I'm kidding. Kidding.
Well, I'm just
going to cleanse you with light.
For anybody, anybody in the city of New Orleans, or anyone that's listening, most of the people in the city don't need to hear this from me, but even people thinking about traveling, but you'd be surprised. There are a lot of locals you know, to get a great experience is to go visit the Voodoo Spiritual Temple on 528 North Rampart Street and or 14, North Rampart Street, Voodoo Spiritual Temple. I might have just said the old address. And Priestess Miriam is there, and she's an icon in the city. She's an old Black woman. I'm sorry to say old, but she's, you know, she's can.
It happens, man. We get
physical
old.
labor. I've helped paint her temple. I've helped move things around, and so she's physically fit. But she's an older, you know, she's an older generation and an icon in the city, to be quite honest, and an icon of femininity and you know, an icon in the Black community. And she's such a universal approach to religion and inclusivity, hence why I've been with her temple for 20 years. And so there's no better experience you can get than going into the Voodoo Spiritual Temple on North Rampart Street. It's right near Esplanade, and to visit Priestess Miriam and walk in and see, you know, the shrines and collection that she has in there. And she's just such a generous and you know, amazing woman. So, you know, visit the Voodoo Spiritual Temple.
Along with age comes lots of knowledge.
Oh, she's full of knowledge.
There we go.
Sit there and listen to her for hours. She's so awesome. She's fun as heck. Oh my God. She can party. She can outdo me. Yeah, she's great.
I said she was older. I just meant, you know, older women. She's older than us.
Oh, then wise lady.
Yes, she is wise. That's for sure.
Yeah.
She's a lovely lady. I love her to death. Good.
Yeah. I love it. I love it.
I think people in New Orleans are just so kind and just so different than a lot of people around the world. Just their spirituality, their acceptance is so different.
I'm sure Joe, our producer, is probably.
She was nice enough to actually participate in Mojo Rising this year that we had virtually.
Oh, nice.
So she talked to the crowd and sang for us, and it was great. It was great.
Oh, that's awesome. I love it. I love it. Never too old to party is what I say. Yeah. So let's get into, I mean, being in the region of Niagara Falls, there's a lot of folklore down here. And I'm sure you guys, especially in the store, people come in and you know, converse with you, and because it's so wide open. I know that, you know, when I'm pretty much anywhere, people will lasso me, and everybody has a story to tell, right? So what are some of the, you know, let's talk into, I know there's one story that does talk about a native indigenous girl that was sacrificed to the Niagara's, was it a dragon? Was it?
Okay,
there's a piece of folklore.
There's a few versions. There's multi-layers to that story. So yeah.
Okay, good, because I've only probably heard one, and I'm like, what?
Yeah, well, I'll be able to explain that. So just in case anybody that's Native American or First Nations is listening, you know, so they're not offended in any way. But you know, facts are facts.
Right.
Yeah. So we obviously have talked, having been on the show before and meeting in person, that, you know, and we all agree that, you know, the Niagara Peninsula in and of itself is a very unique place. Where it's a peninsula, it means there's water on all the sides of it, or three of the sides. We have two Great Lakes and a river connecting the two Great Lakes, and you know, there's an escarpment and this flow of energy, and you know, the Great Lakes are going out from Lake Ontario to the ocean up through the St. Lawrence. So there's a movement. There's a constant movement here. Lake Erie pouring over Niagara Falls into Lake Ontario that runs out through the St. Lawrence to the ocean. So that's, you know, heavy, you know, kind of cosmic energy. And so the very first indigenous people that, you know, put down roots here in the Niagara Peninsula, they lived here for a very long time. So this wasn't the only place in North America where indigenous people stayed instead of traveling seasons. It's because after the Ice Age, there was a great deal of you know, fertile land. You know, fruit trees and nut trees were growing naturally. There was so much fish and game and protection from the climate because of the Niagara Escarpment. So that means that people lived here for a very long time. And so that puts this region into something that's similar to, for example, like, you know, ancient Samaria, where various people kept coming in and through invasions. And, you know, let's not be romantic about it. Other Native American nations came and invaded the region, but there was still a sort of mystery and religious sort of like connection to the land that was handed down or adopted. And so one of the people that were here for quite a while, going back with, you know, we'll just call them the mound builders. You know, that's what they're famous for. It's the same nation that was all the way southern Ohio that built those different mounds and built mound effigies for various reasons. And they were the same nation that came up here. There's still two burial mounds in Lewiston, of course, on the other side of the river. And there's, you know, human remains of the natives that were living there. And even in Ontario, There is some just outside of London, Ontario, and then there's some up near Rice Lake, near Peterborough, and that's the last of the remnants because most of them were destroyed because of farming. So there's this sort of like ancient connection still to the land where people were constantly venerating these ancient horned serpents, and that's what they're depicted as. And through all the mythologies of the Native American world, from coast to coast to coast, do possess these mythological creatures that were giant horned serpents.
So is this what serpent mounds are about? Sorry,
yeah, that big
mounds?
serpent mound down south is depicting the sacred, and because in the ancient times they were revered as the sort of entity, because nature used to be a bit more unpredictable back then. And that's the same as dragon veneration in ancient Egypt or in the Middle East or in Europe. At some point, new religious ideology, new sort of ideology that said, you know, we're not so subject anymore to cataclysmic floods and ice ages. Things have been controlled now, and so that's where the mythology across all of humanity is, where the dragons are slayed. It means that you know, the ancient nature power has been subjugated, and so this it's the same thing here. It's just not something a lot of people spend time on. So there was an indigenous myth of a giant horned serpent of the water that lived in the Niagara waters.
Right.
Its cave was behind Niagara Falls, and it was considered, and to this day still. So, you know, the Iroquois Confederacy, you know, they were the ones who brought the sort of the structure to the mound builder culture, you know, and they kind of all the way from Ohio to Niagara, just north of even into Northern Ontario, they brought with them the mythology of their sky god hero slaying a giant horned serpent, basically all the PowerPoints and freeing a human maiden that was that serpent's consort. This is all throughout the mythology, all throughout. And so that happened here. The Iroquois eventually on the American side kind of were so structured, and the Niagara region was still inhabited by people. The name comes from the Niagara. They were a buffer between the Huron and the Iroquois, and so they still venerated that serpent. When they were routed in a war, right around the time the French colonized this region, that's when their myth was put, that their sky god hero slayed a giant dragon at the brink of Niagara Falls in this epic battle of lightning and thunder and killing it and wrapping it and sliding into the water so there would be no more. But really, the Tuscarora, who don't live too far away, they still revere it as an ancient primal energy, but is serpentine, has horns, can speak to humans, will help humans, if the human is deemed as a worthy person. So essentially the myth was that there was a plague here in the Niagara region, and that a sacrifice was offered to the serpent being, and it was specifically a woman, a maiden. That's what the maiden of the myth is kind of loosely based upon. And so that original story is that he kept her as his consort because either her father or her lover jumped in the river shortly after in remorse, and he accepted that body as a sacrifice, alleviated the plague, and then were these consorts until the Iroquois myth now came and basically replaced the serpent with the thunderer who lived in the falls now, because this is what humans do. Tribes do. They supplement their god on top of the indigenous one to maintain authority. And so mostly now people think about the myth of the woman being offered over the falls, but they don't really realize, and if they get the Iroquois version, and I understand it's a sacred one, but I'm just being a historian here.
Yes.
And an anthropologist, quasi. But that's what the true nature of this region is, that the whole sacred mystery of the Niagara region is about plague being alleviated through sacrifice. And so it's kind of interesting to sort of, get that visceral connection in this last year and a half of this, ordeal we've been through, to sort of touch on that and to be able to go to the falls when no one else was there and sort of really take in the power of what this means. And that's very interesting. Yeah. But that also is, it's interesting because there's water monster sightings, in the area.
Yes.
And interestingly, this is a passion of mine. I know it's a weird one, but I was born in Scotland, so there's a lot.
I was going to say weird is good, right? And it's close to home for you.
Yeah. But you'll notice that everywhere there is a lake monster, whether it's a Loch Ness monster or the Okanagan out west or Champ in the Vermont waters, and there's many others around the Americas. They have not only an indigenous myth that goes back a very long time, including the one in Scotland. There's one in the Zambezi River in Africa as well. And so it's something that is actually indigenous, it's ancient, and then somehow in modern times manifests and is now sort of this cryptid. You know, people say, I saw a water monster. And every place where they see one, or there's these sightings of a lake monster or a water monster, that place has some indigenous myth that goes back really, really far to say that that is there. Kind of like Sasquatch. I know I'm not going to go
No,
about that.
no, it's true.
It's a native word. They have different words for it in different parts of Americas.
Yeah.
And so oddly enough, here in Lake Erie, more popular in Lake Erie, there's water monster sightings. There's commercialization of it, whether it's down near Port Colborne or on the American side in Pennsylvania. People all the way down into Cleveland region, they commercialize the fact that there's a famous sort of historic, lots of sightings from the 1800s through various moments, 1900s to now in the 2000s, a water monster. And the same thing in Lake Ontario. Lake Ontario is a little more elusive, but there was a lot of sightings at one point. And then even in the Niagara River.
But they have triangles too, though.
That's right.
You look at the Michigan Triangle, the Lake Ontario Triangle.
That's right. The Great
and you're getting out to the one that's butting up against Nova Scotia, because we do have, like you say, cryptids, water cryptids, but they happen to be near these areas. So do you think there's a connection?
I don't know if anyone's ready for my personal opinion.
Oh, no, you're good company, man. Just let her go.
One of my theories is, and I've presented this to a lot of people over the years, is that at least the monster, let's just call it the lake monster of Lake Ontario and Lake Erie and the Niagara River, surely is probably the same one, because the waterways are connected. If there's an indigenous mythology of the serpent having its home in Niagara Falls, under the falls, and being seen as a creature swimming in the water holes of Lake Ontario and Lake Erie, then this is very similar to the Zambezi River monster in Africa, where it swims through the falls and into the neighboring waterways. So to me, it seems like there's mythology of ancient water serpent, one in particular in this region. And so I think that just the fact that two lakes are separated and the river connecting them is this, just people just don't know that it might be the same one. I know this sounds crazy, but that's sort of the thing. And I noticed too, like each of these places, I believe they're different. Begs the question, what are we talking about? Are we talking about some, prehistoric creature that's just somehow evading humans? Or is it a signature of something that once did live, like an ancient power that can still sort of be seen by humans, but it's so archaic it appears that way as a sort of giant
serpent
manifest
itself, basically.
Disappears again? Is it a signature? Or is it something that's, because people still venerate dragons in Asia. They never stopped there.
That's true.
That's the one part of the world where they still venerate dragons. There's a great sophistication to it, the way that they honor them and how they grow and so to them, they're ancient gods. And I know a lot of people, like we've met a few people like Oberon Zell, and who's a wizard, a really unique individual, old pioneer of wizardry here in the Americas. And we've had this conversation with him about dragons being ancient gods. And I've met a lot of people that are dragonologists that believe that. And then when they hear about the ones here in North America, well, it's a touchy subject because it's connected to First Nations and Native American religions, and there's taboos not to say the names at certain seasons and maybe try not to promote it. I'm just having a conversation right now. It's not like I teach classes on this, so it doesn't matter.
You should.
And I'm talking about this. But I think it's ancient. Well, that would be dwindling into the appropriation zone. But it does seem like I think that they are, these types of an old ancient god, that if you can connect to that realm, and any realm can truly be connected, then it can somehow manifest and you can interact with it and still receive the blessings. It's just like the old pagan gods, the ancient ones that people forgot about, and then they rekindle, like the Greek gods or the Roman gods. Hecate comes to mind right now. She's so popular. Hecate, everyone worships her. 20 years ago in the witchcraft world, barely anyone mentioned her name, and yet she's just resurged now. And so this is how these things happen. The more people that are aware of a certain entity, the more it can be brought forth to the consciousness again. So it's definitely an interesting paradigm when it comes to the water magic of this region.
Well, we have tunnels also. One thing I did notice, much like you guys, with everything being so quiet, lack of tourists, is I was actually able to see on the other side of the falls because it wasn't wall to wall people. So you're taking a drive. I'm like, holy shit, is that a cave? And I drive by again. It's like, is that another cave? It has to make you wonder, maybe your theory isn't so far-fetched if there's a way that they can, maybe it's not just through behind the falls, or maybe it can get into an area through the cave behind the falls that takes it further under the
If
water?
it's an actual swimming creature,
If it
or
is,
if it's
is it
sort of
interdimensional?
signature god, ancient sort of serpentine entity that just continues to metaphysically swim in its old waterways. I don't know, but you're right about the caves. Even I have noticed that. I know the
Yeah.
falls very well, and I've noticed the same thing over the last year, just how many caves. And again, in First Nations lore here in this region,
Yeah.
all those caves were considered to be portals into the realms of, nefarious
I
snakes.
freaking believe it.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I was just going to ask you about that because I'm in Stony Creek and we have lots of property, not me personally, but there's lots of land out here that they can't build on because of the caves. And I'm kind of grateful because I do appreciate living in the country. There's a reason why, I'm out here. I don't want the city just keeps getting closer to me. But there's tons of caves and I never thought about that.
What's in those caves?
Well, I always thought what's in there and how can I get in it myself? But then knowing me, I'd probably end up stuck there. But I just never thought of it in that sort of way, and that's very interesting.
Well, there is I have done it here. I haven't gone very far into. I'm kind of freaked out by caves. I won't lie.
Yeah,
I don't
me
want to get
too.
trapped in one. But I've gone in just a little bit, or I've sat at the entrance of one. It's quite enough. Many places on both sides of the border. And cave magic, once again, is a particular type of magic. That is a place. It's a portal through subterranean connections into the very belly of the earth. And so there's certain winds and certain entities and certain spirits. And again, every cave, especially if it's somewhat older, humans were doing ceremonies in there. It's kind of like a haunted property that people have constantly been going to. There's this sort of signature, and every cave has one. And so to be just sitting outside of the cave sometimes and feeling the wind come out at you, that in of itself is pretty intense. Because that wind is coming through all the rocks, coming through under the ground. Like it's such a network. And so cave magic is a whole thing of its own, actually. And, so wherever there's caves, there's a lot of ancient magic. And we live here where, there once was a great deal of reverence towards the caves until things were, people were displaced and whatnot. But yeah, anywhere in the world, there's always a connection to the caves.
So then that basically lends to your theory of it being interdimensional. Perhaps it's coming through portals. If there are all of these caves and tunnel systems and they're potentially portals, then why not?
I know it sounds crazy. We did
Not
do this
really.
last year.
No, nothing's crazy.
Last year we had a ritual here, an open ritual about dragon magic. And we had a lot of we were lent, exquisite fossils of dinosaurs that we could use that night for people to lay hands on, everything from dinosaur eggs to it was unbelievable.
Wow.
And just full transparency, as a person who's been in a band called Dragon Ritual Drummers all these years, I love dragons. I've made most of my adult life, despite all the other crazy pursuits, really about the dragon energy, dragon gods, dragon entities around the world. And so I do believe ultimately kind of what the crazy old wizard Oberon Zell says, or leads to, and he's not alone in that I think that most of these are an ancient type of god. That goes back to, let's be honest, dinosaurs did exist. They were here.
Yes.
So is it the spirits of them? Some have that idea that it's like the ghosts of dragons are, a signature of when these creatures did walk the earth or swim the waters or fly in the air. So to me, they are some sort of an ancient god. That is, much like the ancient other pagan gods that are sort of forgotten. And so, and that goes for here in the Americas, Asia, Africa.
You're not far off. If a spirit person, an individual, can leave an imprint of itself or can manifest itself in spirit as energy, I believe, even aside from your theory, of gods, because there were many gods, that's sorry, people, just send your hate mail to our producer, Joe Montalto. Don't say that to me. Just saying.
United
Just
Public
saying.
Radio,
It happens. Not trying to ditch anybody's religion. Okay. There, I'll just leave it right there. But if they and we as people can leave an imprint of ourselves, why couldn't any of these majestic beings do the same? You're catching, maybe a residual energy, or maybe you're just catching it in spirit.
That's right. I mean, they lived here. Let's just say, dinosaurs, as what we think, lived on the earth and ruled it for hundreds of millions of years.
Correct.
Humanity, as far as we know, has barely a million years from the most, primitive form if we did evolve in the way it is. But either way, what we know kind of right now of humanity is not even a blip. And dinosaurs, according to what they know, were here for hundreds of millions of years. So their signature is all over this earth. And I'm sure that in ancient times when they found fossils of a dinosaur head, that might have been why we paint them as dragons somewhere. But so I'm not saying that they're ancient gods that transformed into reptilians. I just mean that they were an ancient power. And it's primal. So it's a primality you're connecting to. So the water dragon of the Niagara region, for example, it's about water. It's not one that's in the mountains or one that's in the desert, which there's those all over this continent like that. This one's water, and water is about healing. It's about, we have the mist. There's a subtlety and a mystery to what that particular one was about. So they all have personalities, and people that are really immersed in dragon lore, even though they're, crossing into different cultures. But again, I was born in Scotland. Dragons are part of my culture, so,
Scottish ancestry, I'm right with you.
I'm just really interested in, and I'll just stop
with every little bit of folklore, right, or oral history, there comes at least a grain of truth, if not a lot more. Nobody just popped into their head one day and says, you know what, this is a thing. It's like somebody in the area saw something, and whether it was a fish that was this big, when it started ended up this big, or whether it really was this big to start with, and it was like a thing, like it started with somebody seeing something. And when you start looking at the similarities, let's use dragons, for example, when you start looking at the similarities throughout different cultures in different parts of the world, I did a whole show on dragons. It was great.
Oh, wow.
But they're there. There's it doesn't matter which culture, they're there. You have monarchs from, let's say, we'll go to the UK, who use dragons as part of their emblems.
That's right.
Coat of arms. Where did it come from? It has a huge representation. Right? Getting into the Arthurian legends of the Pendragons. Like, where did it come from?
Almost the sort of like, again, a lot of people, when I talk about dragons, or we're doing this and talking conversations, people start going, okay, Harry Potter, settle down. But there's a great deal of sophistication there. Once again, is because even the ones in Europe, like you referenced, other parts of the world, they all, everywhere that they are around, even here in the Americas, they represent an ancient power from an ancient time. And so that's their mystery. And so when people are using the dragon, for example, for their heraldic purposes of royalty, they're claiming an ancient power of that land. That's right. So there's a great deal of symbolism and magic to that in and of itself.
There is.
You're on the right show. Don't worry.
Amelia will like this story. I can't remember the towns in Italy, but there was a story that went back to the 1500s, I believe, where there were two towns in Italy that were constantly battling. And with this, they had to unite because a dragon had a den right in between both of these towns.
They're very much believers in dragons. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And this thing, they brought in a priest to get rid of the dragon. So, of course, the priest gets rid of the dragon, and it fell. Apparently, there is a dragon's rib still to this day, because he brought it back.
I have to check and see if it's Roman.
It's in the church. I'll give you the name of it. I have it in my notes. But when I read it, I went, come on. It's like, this one little guy is going to tweak down a dragon. And apparently it was done with like prayer. But anyway, apparently there's this big, crazy part of a dragon's rib in the church to this day.
Wow.
Interesting.
That's very cool.
That's very cool.
It was very cool, but so I don't know, like, the big moral of the story is you join together, work as a force, and hire a priest to come and take down, the area bully. But there's just a lot of stories out there about dragons. And I like the lore of it. I like you say, harnessing that power. Because when you think of a dragon, it is power. And the fact they have water dragons, fire dragons, like wind, everything. It's earth dragons. That's just, you know, I don't know, people. I love it. I think it's a great story.
Me
I'm
too.
with you on it too.
Wayne
I'll
says,
never be the guy at the party calling you Harry Potter. I'll be
Well,
ringing
you
in.
know, I know sometimes people are like, I'm listening, and then it gets to the dragon part, they're like,
no,
I'll be
you're
your
in
wingman.
you're in the right
wingman.
company. You're in the right company right now, and you're on the right show. Wayne says every legend has an ounce of truth in its beginnings, and I believe that for conspiracies too. But that's another show.
Uh-oh.
I just want to do a quick station ID.
Of course.
You are listening to The Outer Realm on 107.7 or 105.3 FM in New Orleans. We are United Public Radio. I'm doing it a little backwards today.
I see this.
Yes.
I try to throw me off.
You're joining Michelle DeRoche and myself as we welcome special guest Cat Thagard and Utu Witchdoctor, who's been on the show a few times with us, and we love having them back. And it's nice to meet Cat, coming all the way from Niagara Falls, Ontario, Canada. And we want to thank Folgers for fully sponsoring this show tonight. I'm like, because we're running late today. Fully sponsoring our show tonight. We'd love you guys. Folgers Coffee. My camera is opposite, so whenever I put something up, it's always backwards for me. That's why I look kind
It's
of funny
all about
when I'm
the
doing
logo.
that.
Everybody knows the Folgers
Backwards.
logo.
Yes,
There
everybody
we
knows
go.
Folgers. Thank you, Folgers. We are United Public Radio.
Thank you. Thank you. So here's something about Niagara Falls that a lot of people don't know, and everybody knows and loves this individual, Nikola Tesla. Speak.
He's not Italian if you don't know him. He is not Italian. Oh
There we
my
go.
God.
So one of the people that I like to work with, like Cat too, he wrote the foreword in my book. Cat has had him and his wife, Baba Ted Zhao, and his wife is Kate Zhao, Lady Kate Zhao. They live in Grand Rapids. But he's a prolific author, has written a lot of books, and he's a priest he's Indonesian descent. He's a priest in the voodoo religions like myself, and so we're colleagues. And he came here to Niagara quite a few times because of the annual conjure camp we were doing. He was a regular guest at it. And, you know, one of the things that he sort of connected for me was this idea, because he loves Nikola Tesla. He's all about his, you know, because there's a great mystical sort of lore to him. Because then at the end of the day, he's also kind of become this sort of, what's the word, like a technological sort of ghost in the machine of the Niagara power system, because he created it.
Wow.
Nikola Tesla came to Niagara to demonstrate that they could be harnessed for hydroelectricity. That was him. He did it. So that's why there's a statue
of him near the falls.
On both sides of the border.
Okay.
Really? A bigger one in Niagara Falls.
That's a big deal.
If you are bending the law a bit, the one in Niagara Falls, he's sitting in a big chair. He's much bigger. You can climb up on his lap. That's all fun. The one here on our side, which is just around the corner from Cat's shop here in the Falls, is a slightly smaller one, but he's standing up, still cool. And of course, he also was helped do a lot of the consultation for making all of the sort of the industry in Hamilton. Hence, there's a street they finally named after him, Nikola Tesla Boulevard, because he was involved in this whole region. Yes. And he believed in this sort of notion because he had some new age aspects to him. You know, think about the level of pioneering of technology, and he kind of blended the world of the spiritual and the technological together, you know, and he drew a lot from Hindu mysteries, a couple of yogis he specifically gravitated towards. And so he had a unique, you know, tapestry of spiritual beliefs, you know, for a man of his culture. And he was completely enamored with Niagara Falls, of course, not only because of he saw it as a place in order to tap power, which now feeds the entire eastern seaboard of North America, you know, but he also believed there was mysticism. He knew about the local lore, of course, to some degree, and just also knew the idea of just the simple fact that when the falls, Niagara Falls, is going down and all the mist comes up, that's negative ions, which is positive energy. So he just knew that there was an effervescence even in the air, and that all of that could be harnessed and could contain spirits, and in a way he left his signature in the electrical work because he believed that was able to hold spirit, you know, like, you know, it's very interesting. And so now that he's sort of becoming more known, because he's become sort of like this a renaissance of popularity, right? In the last 20 years, movies depicting him, and all of a sudden this sort of, the new worlds have become sort of fascinated with him because they realize
not just a car.
That maybe he,
he's not the car at all.
He kind of created in his mind originally, like if you read it, like the idea of Wi-Fi in the early 1900s. He believed in this, and he was able to power, the famous expo where he lit everything up, and it was all through different ways. Like the man was a genius and using different types of technological aspects when it comes to electrical currency. So, the fact that he's become this sort of folk hero, now, he's been entombed or installed as statuary on both sides of this crazy place where he made the falls, become what they were as far as, the technology to power in, hydro, that he's almost become deified now in a strange way. And this is what we call it in voodoo, is that he's become elevated, and he's being venerated now by people that normally wouldn't say, oh, I really hold this person in high regard. But there's people that like literally kind of like venerate him in their own weird way. Yes. And there's a weird occult and, esoteric arms of people that think that he, maybe they embellish it a bit what his spiritual beliefs were, but it doesn't matter. He's already been, elevated to the point there's statuary on either side and places named after him. And this magical kind of weird area that we live in, that's got this dragon energy and all these lakes and, all the strange ghost energy we have here. And there we go. There's Nikola Tesla. Tapped that power. He tapped it to create more power. And so that's very interesting. And I kind of see him. He's starting to slowly become this sort of folk saint of the Niagara Falls.
I could see it. Yeah. And in our industry also, because he was the creator of the very first telephone to the dead spirit box. But everybody figures, he uses, like all of them, even in modern times, when Frank Sumption built it, they all believed that it was to communicate with the dead, but it wasn't. It was to communicate with aliens. And he specifically, in his writings, talked about communicating with beings from what he believed were other planets. So he was really out there. Oh yeah, like he
I didn't know that. That's pretty cool.
There's a reason why he was targeted.
Edison tried to copy that, but you see, Tesla tested it, and Edison never did. And of course, he had a huge fascination with the ancient pyramids of Egypt, also.
Yep.
And it's very cool, that he was in this region too, because I know the man who built this house had to do with, there's big reverence to that Banfield family here for working with electricity also, and along with Henry Pellet. And I often wonder, now that you say that Tesla came here, if they had actually interacted, since these three men were instrumental in bringing the power here to Niagara.
Well, I did know a little bit about. I wasn't going to go there with the aliens, but I did know about.
That's very cool. Do it. This is our realm.
We do aliens once a week.
For that particular world, but yeah. So Bubba Ted has written some books about this subject, and whenever I talk to him, like for him to come here to Niagara the first time, that was his big thing. I've got to see the statue of Nikola Tesla, and to be able to go there was really cool. And for him to see it and hang out there for a bit and just drink in, for him, because he's written several books about Tesla's kind of, esoteric and metaphysical side. And so I realized that there's a lot of complexities to him. So the fact, that when you think about it, because he's become elevated, and I'm going to guess maybe, exactly what I'm saying, is he's attainable now. And if you were going to try to connect to his spirit through some sort of mediumship or some sort of experimentation,
through the box that he designed,
through the mechanisms he designed, then what better power source? Where else are there statues on either side of that chasm that creates the energy built?
Oh my gosh, we should go there.
There's only one. It's only here. It's here.
All four of us. Seriously.
Yeah.
Let's go.
This region has it, and so if you're going to connect with his spirit, work with him, then what better power source than Niagara, where he tapped
in my
house.
We need to do it. We need to do it.
House. Yeah, this is apparently the house that has no walls. So people, apparently all kinds of mediums says, you can almost like see it from space. Your house has no walls. We're like, what? Of course, the house has walls. But this is where, I don't know, a lot of people, this used to be a bed and breakfast, as you know, and a lot of people used to come here to have experiences and could communicate with their loved ones from here.
Wow.
It's a gorgeous house. I love that. I love walking by there. I walk by there sometimes and walk down to the to the end on lunch or something like that. And I always walk by your house.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Well, yeah. So, we're just getting through the restoration of it, but of course you're all, you're both welcome. So
we need
Bubbles
to do
is
the
there.
water point. Bubbles is there all the time. We need to go we need to go where Utu said.
I'm
we
not
need
going
to go
into
right
this.
to the
You're
dead,
doing this. That tells me it's like a whirlpool thingy, and I'm not doing
dead
it.
center. For me, it is. For me, energetically, it is. But can
Right.
you imagine the four of us at that point with all of our different gifts? Like, I can't imagine what we could do.
Well, I can imagine it. It sounds pretty enticing to me.
I want to do it. I want to do it.
Like, yeah, let's do it. Yeah,
I
it's
want to
funny
do
because
it.
I was driving by there one day and I saw a rainbow coming over the falls, and it came right up near that statue. It just ended. That's where the rainbow ended. I caught a photo of that, and the statue's like here, and it ended right here. I'm like, I've never actually seen the end of a rainbow like right in front of me. Where's the damn pot of gold? Where I want to know. But then here's Tesla, right? I was kind of like, all right, I get it. That's very cool.
I'm so drawn to it now that you mentioned it, Utu.
She's going to be OCD obsessed with it. Thanks, Utu.
Yeah, definitely. Just never really sat and thought, because we live beside it. We're always around it. We don't think of it like other people do. Like, I love that. You went there and you're thinking, look at all this power. Look at what's going on. Who has touched it? Who comes through it? We're better to source the energy and communicate than there. I mean, my God, seriously, that is brilliant.
It's a blessing, actually, and I was really happy in the last few years to get to know you. But the fact that you're also in the region, and this is something that Kat, myself, also endeavored to with other people, is to really, and the cross collaboration with you guys to exchange. The Niagara region really needs to be a bit more on the map of a paranormal, mystical place. It always has been. It is what it is. It's got that sense of the macabre already. There's so much mystery, whether it's
the honeymoon capital of the world.
Tesla, the lore of the Maid of the Mist. I mean, even in the 80s, remember the harmonic convergence? Well, this is one of the locations was Niagara Falls. So it's doused as a power source of the world. We have the most ghosts per capita, supposedly, in the Niagara and the Lake region. Like, the whole place is unique.
God,
most haunted town in Canada.
And so that's what we've been trying to do in the last few years, is continue what we've both been doing in our own right, but to really sort of put this place on the map more as a place of a destination for
this sort of thing,
for the paranormal, for voodoo, because there's even Underground Railroad lore here coming through this region. So there's so many elements of spiritual reasons and mystical and magical and unique reasons to sort of tap into the power source of Niagara.
I agree with you. And UFOs is another one. They come because of the power source, because of the water, and you see them all the time. Seriously.
UFOs?
Oh, yeah.
I thought you said UFOs. I'm sorry.
UFOs. I did say UFOs.
She did. I don't want to.
UFOs. Yeah. No, it's true. For sure, we've seen them.
Yes.
I know a couple people who have been down there and seen some pretty hefty stuff, like mid-tourist season.
Just go stand out across the road and right over River Road. Just walk across, have a look. You'll see when they come in all over. And sometimes, if you're lucky, you'll see this black helicopter shoot out right after it. Caught that one night. Yeah, and military jets the next morning. And
oh, wow.
Well, you've probably heard of, Michelle, the Port Dalhousie lights phenomena. That's down.
No, tell.
Get out of here.
It's kind of dying out. Actually, about a year ago, I went searching on the internet for it because I'd read it in books before, and all the locals talk about it. So they call it the Port Dalhousie lights, which is essentially, and I have some. Luckily I was smart enough to photocopy things out of this old historic book, so I still have the paperwork of it. But the Port Dalhousie lights is because looking from Lake Ontario, Port Dalhousie region out towards Toronto, was famous for a while for all of these crazy UFO sightings, to the point where this guy who was an American military air traffic controller kind of knew a little bit about what was going on, and said that he made a passion of his, moved into the region, and said, I know because of my old clearance that it's not military from Americans coming over here. He said, so he was interested in it, and it's just, they're basically lights that just seem to move in the most craziest of ways. And so it's sort of died away now. And about a year ago, I was looking to see if I could find some trace of it on the internet, and I found a little bit. But so there's a huge tradition of it And all the old people, I'm not from this region, so all the old people that I knew that were kind of cool, that were about my parents' age, were like, oh yeah, Portaluzzi lights. They talked about it all the time if they were hanging around down by Municipal Beach and Portaluzzi Beach back in the 60s and 70s and early 80s, to still see these things on a regular basis.
Back then it was a thing.
I heard that.
And it's actually kind of interesting because what they all said was they would go up and do around and go into the water or come out of the water.
USOs, that's right.
And now, what are we seeing as the most sort of thing that the American military and people started to come up to say? Oh, they're coming through the water as well, you know?
It's true. They are. Do you know that there's allegedly an alien base near that triangle under the water between where the Hamilton Harbor is that comes up, you know, through Burlington Bay? There's a triangle there, and there's allegedly a base there. And people have seen things under the water, just lights just going within that area.
Okay, listen, I know this. Okay. I have.
No, man, you are.
Nothing's crazy.
I've seen the submarine like lights in Lake Ontario at night.
Yes.
So, and you know, I've seen it from shore, you know, because I spend a lot of time by the water. I'm a surfer, so I love the lakes. I'm always around them. And so, with my old priestess and my old witchcraft tradition, we were all down there one night. And that's the most crazy thing I've seen in that water at night, was something that appeared like some lit up thing going past. And we were all like, what the heck was that?
USO, I'm telling you. In Burlington, there's an area, which was just a street over from where my house is. And it's called UFO Lookout. And people go up there and they look across because they could see Lake Ontario. They're way above and they catch all kinds of things. People come from everywhere to capture an experience, I guess. And I'm just sitting here thinking, all I can just do is go outside. Just watch something zing by, or, you know, questionable things. Every now and then you'll see this big cloud go by and you'll see it just doing this. But it's beautiful blue skies. And you're thinking, I wonder what that was. And it's totally like round shape, but it's in the cloud.
I wish I knew about the Burlington. I was just in Burlington last week for like a few days. I wish I had known about that one. I would have.
It is. It's just off King Road. I'll give you the exact directions next time you go.
Yeah,
I just listed the house there, but it's just like everybody would go, and every now and then you'd get these weird black cars that would come up our road because it's a thoroughway, and you'd be just weird blacked out windows and blacked out lights at the back, and you're thinking you're looking for the next street over, you know. But we'd see them. It was just really, really strange.
Cool.
I want to go shopping at Cat's store.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
Oh my gosh!
You absolutely do.
Shopping.
Come over anytime. Anytime.
She has wine.
Yeah, I'll bring it to you. Don't worry about it. I'll bring it.
All right.
Just like, wow.
After hours it is. So I like it. Well, no. So see, lots of good stories. Look at all this like fun stuff that we're just like learning from one another. Right. You know, there's also stories of other like interdimensional beings down along River Road. They just go flying across the road. And we had an experience one night coming back from a film shoot in Niagara on the Lake, and we were just driving up River Road. All of a sudden, this big thing went way over, and it went over the road. And I thought, it's as big as a deer, but it would have jumped over a stop sign. And you know how high those are? And when we looked over, we stopped and we looked over. First of all, nobody wants to be that guy, so everybody's quiet. We look at each other, goes, okay, did you see that? Shit, yes. I don't know what the hell that was. But there was a drop, you know, on the left side of us because we're coming towards here. There was a drop all the way down into the river. For a deer to jump, it would need to make, pick up speed. There was nothing. It was a sheer drop. I'm like, oh, maybe it's a plastic bag, you know, because it was iridescent, like translucent. And we stopped, we pulled over. There was nothing. It was just completely, there was nothing, just gone. Wow. It was like huge. Sure. There've been there's
definitely some weird energy on River Road, like weird energy.
Yeah. Even this house, something came through this house. It hit the neighbor's house, and literally like a car hit her. It's like, we're thinking he was trying to avoid this, because at the exact moment, same time, because we pegged the time remember, Amelia, we were doing a radio show,
We were
and then he
doing a
had to
live
run because
show.
the house got hit that day, and there was water coming in and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And anyway, something came shooting through the dining room window, and the whole window rattled, shot through here, and hit this window. It rattled. You know, we've had bright lights just shoot through the house, and it's like,
Right.
You don't
You're
want
so
to know what
close
goes
to
through
it.
her house.
ET freeway. No,
You don't want to
Right.
know what goes through her house. Seriously.
Oh, seriously, we were
Yeah,
just
I
like,
do want to know. I want to
Oh
see
my
it too.
we just
Gosh.
laughed. He just looks at me and
Yeah.
goes to the window, goes, whew, and he goes,
Then I
and he
get a
just looks
text.
at me. I'm just like,
Yeah. Bubbly, I need you to tap
don't
in.
know.
I need you to tap in, Bubbly. I'm like,
that's
oh,
one of
God,
those
what's
things.
there now? It's like,
No.
what's there now?
No,
What's this
yeah. I'm just like, I don't know what that was, but we become so relaxed with it now. We're just kind of like, just look at
Yeah,
each other and go,
the text is
"That was
different now.
something,
They're
wasn't
just
it?"
like, there's something here. I'm just letting you know, but I'm fine. Like, no, I'm still looking.
No, there's always things in the house. I'm just sort of like, but it lends to what you're saying. It's just maybe it's the area.
Yeah.
There's just
Yeah.
so much energy here, and it's just like a swirling. It's
the
everywhere.
water. It's the
Well,
water.
we're very close to the river, right?
Yeah, it's the water.
The water,
Big
the
But
vortex-
power.
Niagara,
big
the
vortex
falls
of
are
swirling. You just
massive.
nailed it. It's the swirling nature of
Yeah.
things, and it's the chaos that comes along with it. And that's kind of what Tesla was tapping into. It's that sort of, power creating negative ions, swirling nature of the waters, the escarpment, funneling it all. It's just a vortex of power, and all of the different caves and the different, different levels of just, yeah, it's just such a unique place. Obviously it was very sacred at one point. Now it's very touristy, but somewhere amongst there's always been this tapping into the falls of this macabre sort of like fascination with the darkness of it and the power of it and the power of the region.
But it is still very sacred. We go down there and leave put offering into the water, biodegradable things only. But yeah, it's fully, you tap into that power and you use it, and, collecting the water from the river. It's another one,
Mm-hmm. Do you
I
find
never
it
thought about
changes?
that.
Like coming in from Lake Erie, it has a very different feel as you approach the falls than it does, let's say, Lake Ontario.
Oh, that bridge.
Have you noticed that? Like it's got a
bridge.
real it's not balanced. It's just very
The water coming in, like,
from Lake
through the
Erie.
falls, that
coming in.
it's totally way higher energy.
Yeah.
And way higher just vibrational stuff going on just from the sheer power of,
Mm-hmm.
the mother pulling that water over the falls, for me, it's a total, Mother Earth, Gaia, Mother Nature, the goddess.
Mm-hmm.
That is, her fury. It just shows the power of, if she doesn't want us here, we're not here.
Right. Right.
So
Do you find
and
yourself
more
drawn
so
to
there than Lake Ontario, I think. But
Yeah, well, Lake Erie too. You nailed it. Also, it's like Lake Erie has this sort of like northern tropical sense to it. Like there's the beaches are so slightly different. There's islands, shoal islands, and there's a shallow lake. It's kind of almost, it's like the tropics of Canada, right? And then it goes over the falls, like Kat says. And then when you get to, it's fun to swim in both lakes in one day. I've done it lots. Then when you get into Lake Ontario, it's very deep. It's very dark, different color,
It's black.
it's a different
It's black.
sensation. And so, like you say, the two energies are just, even though it's been purified through the power of the falls, when it comes out,
It's still
it's
polar
just like,
opposite.
these are two different bodies of water with two different total energies. It's very palpable.
Yeah. So I guess when you're thinking rituals, you could do the same rituals in two different locations and end up with very different results.
Different results entirely,
Totally.
for sure. Location, and don't forget too, Lake Erie is highly elevated. That's what the falls is. So you're in a different elevation. And then the falls is that pouring over. And then when you come down to the lowlands of Lake Ontario, because that's what the escarpment is, totally different. As you know, I live in St. Catharines. You live in the falls. There's those days in the early winter when I see all the cars coming to St. Catharines covered in snow. I'm like, what the hell's going on? Oh, they were up in the falls. Like, you drive up the top of the escarpment and there's snow, right? Or some days it comes plowing into St. Catharines and no one got snow in Niagara Falls. Like, that's the other thing about this region. We have a banana belt multiple microclimates. The weather
look
in
at Fort Erie.
is different than
Fort Erie's
Niagara Falls, which is
ridiculous.
different than St. Catharines, and then you get to
Yeah.
Hamilton at the very end, and that's where the storm zone is, right? Because it's
That's
just
true.
everything collides. So the weather
In
is different.
Burlington, we'd get mists all the time. We'd be right in that little corner in the bay, and we'd
Yeah.
go across from Toronto and just completely miss us. And I was spoiled for a long time. You know, moved here, and I'm just like,
Well, you have it good in the falls. I live in Port Colborne now, and that's just like lake effect snow.
Snowbelt.
all
Crazy.
the time. Yeah, it's
But
like
even
that's
the
what I mean with
water-
Fort Erie. Yeah,
Even the water at Nickel Beach in Port is a whole different vibe than Lake Ontario. I don't know. Lake Erie is just a different,
it's a
It
different
is
thing
different.
altogether.
It is different. Yeah.
Yeah,
right?
You could
Yeah.
walk for 3 kilometers in Lake Erie and still have the water at your knees.
lots of UFOs.
I've done it, like seriously.
Just saying, like
Hmm?
military have said it's a hotbed for them. Yeah, the military, our Canadian military, has said that there's like Lake Erie is really like active for stuff like that. Maybe because it's so shallow. I don't know.
So
I've known a lot
shallow.
of people who've gotten photographs they're just sitting there, you know, by the water, and they look up.
That's why
I feel
I'm
like
not
Lake
comfortable
Erie would be more of a UFO place, and Lake Ontario would be more of like a, sacred serpent place. Kind
You
of thing.
would think so, but people, UFO lookout, people are like, no,
Right.
you got a triangle. I'm like, what? We got a triangle? And you got a sea monster. Seriously, I did not know this for the longest time. And I lived there for like 30 years. I'm like, where the hell have I been? Like, I'm missing all this great stuff and right in my own backyard, practically, you know. And we have wolf people, wolves that stand upright. I've had more reports of wolf people. And I can't even tell you the shit we've seen like around here. That's a
Okay.
whole other freaking show,
Those
man.
are
Okay,
the
I want to
same
know.
as
Oh, you're
Pagans.
looking at me funny, and I know you got one. I want to hear it.
Okay, so you're talking about wolf people in the Niagara region, right?
Yep.
So do you remember the lovely lady Rosemary Ellen Guiley, who was like,
Yes.
such a
Yes.
great? So
Yes.
I used to know, I knew her really well, and
Yes.
Oh,
I loved her.
really?
We got along great. I was a great
You're
friend
so
of hers.
lucky. Amazing
So
woman.
cool. And I had a great conversation with her about a year before she passed away.
Right.
And I had great conversations with her always, but because I was bringing up that I was kind of being sort of enamored by some of the werewolf or wolf people, Lucaroo, things of this nature. And I had said to her, because she had just written this book, I was like, do you ever notice that wherever the French colonizers went, they brought werewolves? And she's like, yes, I have noticed that. And so, that's why even all the way into Louisiana, they build that the people in the swamps built the effigy of the alligator, Lac Lemant, to scare
Yes.
off the loup-garou, and those are the people that were kicked out of the Acadians that came out of the east coast of Canada
That's
and
right.
sent to go live into Louisiana. And so we have that werewolf sort of strange wolf man, wolf spirit kind of thing happening in the Maritimes of Canada. And then here in the Niagara region, people forget this was a big French colony.
Come
right?
on, look at it. The Port Robinson beast. We had an eyewitness give us an account of that. It chased her down a street, and she woke. She came out of her house the next day, and there were big claw marks down her car.
Damn.
Wow.
Right? Shit. I know. See, and
If you
in Quebec
think
they
about-
call it the loup-garou.
Loup-garou, yeah.
Instead of the loup-garou. Loup in French is wolf, right?
That's
Loup-garou.
right. So if
And
you
then
think
it's
about it, not
loup-garou.
only in St. Catharines, where you have Club LaSalle, like there's still a small community of French Canadians still there. Welland, Ontario, of course, maybe potentially notorious for it. So that's the,
Yeah,
you
but
know,
how about
and
Romania?
Niagara Falls as well. The name
Yes.
Niagara is a French abbreviation of the original inhabitants'
Right.
nation. So there's a French connection here. And wherever the French were, the wolf spirit person thing.
Let's look at
Interesting.
Romania. I was in a place called Brașov, and in Brașov they have their werewolves. And on every full moon, everybody clears the square because apparently very large wolves come down from the mountain, and they stand upright and take form every full moon. That's Romania. Now Brașov is very German, a German community. In the war, like they came in from Germany and settled within that area. So, right?
We
Just
have a
saying.
wolf here. We have a wolf in Cat and Monkey, Lupa.
There
we
we
celebrate
go. Does it
Lupercalia
get up and
in
walk around on its
February.
back
I love
legs? 'Cause
that.
I really
Go
want to
again.
see that.
I love that it's lupa. In Italian, wolf is lupo.
Lupo.
So I love
Well,
that.
Dang it, it's already like 11. So promote yourselves. How do people find you? What do you have going on? Do it. Promote.
Well, you can find us on, if you're in Niagara Falls, you can find us on Queen Street at Cat and Monkey Events, 4548 Queen Street. If you're on Facebook, you can find us at Cat and Monkey Events on Facebook, or Niagara Witches and Pagans on Facebook. We post everything to both groups. I'll post anything that's going on in the region that's, witchy or anything that's, esoteric, anything like that on that page. You can go to catandmonkeyevents.com, which hasn't been updated lately because we don't have anything going on right now, but it will be, and any events that are going on will be posted there as well.
Yes.
And yeah, that's where you can find me.
Share your pages. Share your page.
I'm easy. So
don't let that get around. Harry Potter.
You just type up Utu Witchdoctor. I don't have a website. I don't need it. I don't want it. So, but my Facebook page is wide open. I'm one of those people. I spend a little bit of time, finding old accounts and getting rid of them. So I'm lucky. I haven't surpassed my limit, which is remarkable. But yeah, Utu Witchdoctor. You type that up, you're going to find any of my social media sites. I do get tons and tons of messages from people I don't know. I do go out of my way at times to try to answer them. And Dragon Ritual Drummers, same thing. You just type up Dragon Ritual Drummers, any of those sites. I'm the one monitoring them, and you can just find me there. And yeah, for sure, between myself, Cat and Monkey, or people in the Niagara region will see, at least by early August, things starting to happen again. Events starting to happen that people can come to. And, sort of, like you said earlier, take it in while we can in case it gets taken away.
Exactly. Well,
and in the meantime, before there's events, if you want to come shopping and you want some retail therapy or to buy some herbs or anything for your spell work, come on in here.
I shall.
See, it opens tomorrow. We're sharing both of your links. Yes. Definitely sharing both.
Yeah, please tag me in any of your events, anything that you've got coming up, because definitely, if I'm in town, I definitely would love to be there. So I'd love to check out the drumming also. So please tag me. I'd be great.
I know we both can't thank you guys enough for having us on tonight. And
this was great.
Just touched the whole subject, of the UFOs in the region and the wolf. I was like, whoa, I need another hour for this one.
Believe you me, we could do it too.
I know for a fact that while you guys are correct, we're on the right show to talk about this stuff. I know there's some fans or friends of mine that are listening to this, or people are like, what the hell? I didn't know he was into this crazy stuff.
That's it. Exactly. What did he just say?
We didn't even get to using the crystal grids and stuff to call the aliens and them, or
we're booking into January, but if you're patient with us, we could do it again, and we could concentrate on a lot of that. And the cryptids.
That would be great.
That's cool. Yeah, that'd be fun.
I'd love to read a couple of comments you guys can hear. Zach Ben says, fantastic show. Thank you, Cat and Utu, for joining us tonight. Please come back. You are awesome. Have a good night, everybody, and a safe weekend. That's from Zach. And Wayne Mello says, great show once again. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing so much of yourselves with us. We love you.
Thanks so much for having us.
And Michael Bowman, I'm glad you like my sound.
So nice meeting you.
So perfect. So I will be in touch then, and I will be in touch with the date, and we'll do it. It's a bit of a wait, but I think it'll be worth it.
Oh yeah.
Hopefully we can get together before then.
Oh, well, that'll happen.
Yes, let's do it.
Take care of that power spot, and I got some shopping to do. Just saying.
Right? Come on by anytime.
Thank you. I look forward to seeing you guys.
Look forward to seeing you guys too.
Much love.
Thank you. Bye. And back to you both. Bye. So we've come to the end of another fantastic segment here on the Outer Realm. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Big thank you to our special guests, Utu Witchdoctor and Cat Thagard, our producer, Joe Montaldo, who is like the Wizard of Oz behind the scenes, And a huge thank you to Folgers Coffee for sponsoring tonight's show. Thank you. Thank you. So please remember to stop by International Public Radio, UFO, Paranormal Radio, YouTube channel, subscribe. Please find us at the Outer Realm on Facebook and Instagram. If you'd like to drop us a line, please do so at the Outer Realm contact@gmail.com. Again, the Outer Realm contact@gmail.com. Tune in next week as we have two more amazing guests. Wednesday, we welcome back Lynn Russell to the show. She'll be talking about near-death experiences. And Thursday night is another treat of the week as we bring back our dear friend and producer, Joe Montaldo. You know we're talking UFOs, right? That's all the buzz, disclosure. So we're going to definitely touch on some fun stuff. So also head on over to podcastawards.com. Yes, podcastawards.com. Look for us, The Outer Realm, under social and culture category, and go over to the People's Choice Award category. Yes, people, we've made it to the second level. Please vote for us. Make it happen. Also, please find our peers from this network, writers and illustrators of the future, under education, storyteller, and drama categories. Also, under the People's Choice Awards, Centralist under the news category, chasing prophecy, spirituality, and religion, and of course Science and Beyond, which is in the science category and also under the People's Choice category. So show us some love. Until then, Amelia and I and Utu and Kat bid you all a good night. We'll see you next week. Behave yourselves. Have a good weekend.
All right, everybody, it's time for you to get out and nominate for your favorite podcast. There are 4 amazing shows I want you to consider for the People's Choice Podcast Awards, the longest-running premier awards event in the podcasting space, open to shows worldwide. You can vote at podcastawards.com and nominate the following shows. Writers and Illustrators of the Future podcast in the categories of education and storyteller drama. This show is based on the world-famous Writers of the Future contest created in 1983 by L. Ron Hubbard and provides writing tips and art advice from contest judges, winners, and industry professionals for writers and artists wanting to take their next step, along with the needed inspiration to keep on going. Next one, The Centralist in the category of politics and news. The Centralist is a much different news and political program. It is not opinion news, it's just the facts so you, the people, can make up your own minds on the different stories reported on. Listen as Joe Montaldo brings to you just the facts from trusted sources. Science and Beyond in the category of science and medicine. Science and Beyond is a true science-based program that explores every aspect of science, from how things work to why we need science, and where science can't explain something, we go beyond to see if we can figure it out on our own how something works. The Outer Realm in the category of society culture. The Outer Realm is a very popular show hosted by Michelle Desrochers and Amelia Pisano, with guests who are well-versed within their respective fields of ufology, paranormal, cryptozoology, and anything else that would be deemed otherworldly. Nothing is off limits in the Outer Realm. Michelle is an international public figure and has spent the last 18 years working in the paranormal. Her co-host Amelia is a remote viewing medium with 9 years experience working in missing children and cold and active murder cases. So go to podcastawards.com to vote for these 4 shows and any others you enjoy listening to. That's podcastawards.com.